My name is Zoe Blackwell, and I'm about to tell you the most insane story of my life. My father, Richard Blackwell, was one of the richest men in all of Texas. People called him the Silent King because he never raised his voice, but when he spoke, mountains moved. He built his empire from nothing, started with a beat-up Ford pickup and a tiny auto parts shop in Riverside. Now he owned corporations in Dallas, Houston, and even New York City. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more incredible tales of justice and redemption. Let me know where you're watching from. Dad wasn't just wealthy, he was brilliant. He could read people like open books, spot lies from across a room, and always seemed to be 3 steps ahead of everyone else. That's why even when people smiled at him, he looked into their eyes, never their lips. He knew something most people didn't: the eyes never lie. Our mansion in Highland Park was a palace. Marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's houses, and 12 bedrooms that echoed with emptiness. But all that luxury couldn't hide the truth: our family was rotting from the inside. Mom, Victoria, used to worship the ground Dad walked on. Now she barely glanced his way. My older brother Jake only called when his credit cards were maxed out. My twin sisters, Sophia and Isabella, cared more about their TikTok followers than Dad's blood pressure. And me? I was caught somewhere between love and resentment, watching our family crumble while Dad tried desperately to hold us together. The breaking point came on Dad's 55th birthday. The tension in our dining room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mom had decorated everything in gold and black, elegant but cold, just like her. She wore a stunning red dress that hugged her curves perfectly, the same shade she'd worn on their wedding day. But her smile was practiced, hollow. "Happy birthday, Daddy," Sophia said, not bothering to look up from her phone as she descended the marble staircase. Her designer dress cost more than a car, but she couldn't spare a genuine hug. Isabella followed, blowing a bubble with her gum before giving Dad the weakest kiss on his cheek. "Hope you like being closer to 60, she laughed, but there was something sharp in her voice. Jake strutted in wearing his signature sunglasses indoors, that cocky grin plastered across his face. "So Dad, how does it feel knowing you're officially old?" He laughed at his own joke, but I caught something else in his expression: eagerness. Like he was waiting for something. Mom floated into the room like she was hosting a television show. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were calculating. "My king," she purred, kissing Dad's forehead. "Happy birthday. You look so handsome tonight." Dad blinked in surprise. "You haven't called me king in 5 years, Victoria." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Maybe I'm learning to love again." But something was wrong. I felt it crawling up my spine like ice water. Earlier that week, during a business trip to our family ranch, Dad had encountered a strange old man on a lonely road. The man wore traditional Native American beads and face paint, and his words haunted me: "Danger lives in your own house. They sharpen the blade with your name carved on it." Dad had laughed it off initially, but that same night, the medicine man appeared again at his sacred grove deep in the Texas Hill Country. "If those you love most turn against you," he'd said, pressing a small charm into Dad's palm, "this will protect your soul. You will fall, but you will rise. And when you rise, they must speak the truth." Now, sitting at our glass dining table, surrounded by fake smiles and expensive wine, I watched Dad slip that charm into his jacket pocket. His instincts were screaming danger, and mine were too. The dining room sparkled under our massive crystal chandelier. Mom had outdone herself with the presentation: bone china plates rimmed in gold, crystal wine glasses that caught the light like diamonds, and Dad's favorite meal: prime rib with garlic mashed potatoes and asparagus. Soft jazz played in the background, but it couldn't mask the tension crackling through the air. Dad sat at the head of our 12-foot glass table, looking regal in his navy suit. But I saw the wariness in his eyes as he watched each of us take our seats. Mom sat to his right, still glowing in that red dress. Jake lounged to his left, phone in hand as usual. The twins flanked the other end, whispering and giggling about something on Isabella's Instagram. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, served the wine with trembling hands. She'd worked for our family for 15 years, and I'd never seen her so nervous. When she reached Dad's glass, she hesitated for just a moment before pouring the deep red liquid. "A toast," Mom announced, raising her glass high. Her diamond bracelet caught the light, throwing rainbows across the table. "To our incredible husband, father, and leader. You've lived such a full life, Richard. May you continue to rest. I mean, reign like the king you are." My blood turned cold. That slip rest instead of rain wasn't an accident. I saw Dad's eyes narrow, but he smiled and lifted his glass. "To family," he said, his voice steady but cautious. "May we always remain true to one another." The glasses clinked together with the sound of breaking promises. Dad brought the wine to his lips. I wanted to scream, to knock the glass from his hands, but my throat felt paralyzed. The liquid touched his lips, and he drank deeply. Jake's laugh was too loud, too sharp. Sophia and Isabella exchanged glances across the table, their eyes glittering with something that made my stomach turn. Mom watched Dad with the intensity of a predator watching wounded prey. Then it happened. Dad's face went pale. His hand flew to his throat, fingers clawing at his collar. The wine glass slipped from his grasp, shattering against the marble floor in an explosion of crystal and crimson liquid. "Richard!" Mom shrieked, but her voice carried more performance than panic. "Oh God, what's wrong?" Dad tried to speak, but only choking sounds emerged. His chest heaved as he fought for air. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his body convulsed. Jake jumped up, slapping Dad's back with unnecessary force. "Dad, are you okay?" But there was no real concern in his voice, just barely contained excitement. I watched in horror as Dad's eyes found mine across the table. In that moment, I saw the truth reflected in his gaze. He knew. He knew what they'd done, and he knew I wasn't part of it. His lips moved soundlessly, forming words I couldn't hear but somehow understood. "I love you, Zoe." Then his body went rigid. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed sideways, his head striking the edge of the table with a sickening crack. Blood pooled beneath him, mixing with the spilled wine on the pristine marble floor. Mrs. Rodriguez screamed from the kitchen doorway, but Mom's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Stay back. Call the driver, we need to get him to the hospital." The family doctor arrived within minutes, suspiciously fast for an emergency call. He knelt beside Dad's motionless form, checking for vital signs with practiced efficiency. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, he looked up with grave eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "He's gone. Massive heart attack." Jake wiped fake tears from his eyes, but I caught the slight smile tugging at his lips. Can we move the body tonight?" he asked quickly. Mom nodded eagerly. Richard hated crowds. He'd want a private burial. But I knew the truth. They wanted him buried fast, before anyone could ask questions. The sky hung heavy and gray the next morning, like nature itself was mourning. Black clouds rolled across the Texas horizon, but no rain fell, as if even the heavens were holding their breath. A sleek black hearse moved slowly down Maple Drive, carrying Dad's sealed casket. Through the glass, I could see his peaceful face, lips pressed together, eyes closed forever. But not one person in that funeral procession truly mourned him. Not one tear for my family was real. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror at Mom, who sat rigid beside the casket, her face a mask of cold indifference. "Ma'am," he said softly, "aren't we taking Mr. Blackwell to the family cemetery in Riverside?" Mom's voice was sharp as broken glass. "No. We'll bury him in the garden behind the house. Private and quiet, just like he would have wanted." The driver's eyebrows raised, but Jake leaned forward with that predatory smile. "You heard her. Fast and private, That's perfect. I rode in the second car with my sisters, watching them take selfies in their designer black dresses. God, I'm exhausted, Sophia complained, adjusting her makeup in the mirror. How long is this charade going to last? Relax, Isabella giggled. Once they dump the coffin in the ground, we can go shopping. I saw this amazing Gucci bag online that would look perfect with my inheritance. They both burst into laughter, and I felt bile rise in my throat. These weren't my sisters anymore, they were vultures in Versace, picking at Dad's corpse before it was even cold. The cars stopped at our estate. The massive iron gates swung open to reveal a small crowd of staff standing with long faces. Some were genuinely heartbroken. Dad had always treated his employees well. Others just looked scared to be caught smiling. Dad's longtime driver, Carlos, removed his cap and wiped his eyes with a weathered handkerchief. He'd worked for Dad for over 20 years, through late nights and early mornings, and couldn't understand how a man that strong could just drop dead overnight. The casket was placed under a small white tent near Mom's rose garden. A cheap plastic chair was brought out for the pastor, who looked confused and uncomfortable. Where are the rest of the family members? Pastor Mitchell asked, clutching his Bible. The business partners? This feels unusual for someone of Mr. Blackwell's stature. My husband didn't like drama, Mom snapped. This is exactly what he would have wanted. Pastor Mitchell frowned. But surely there should be more ceremony, more. Pastor, Jake interrupted coldly, just do your job. We don't need a sermon. With shaking hands, Pastor Mitchell opened his Bible and read 2 brief verses. No choir, no eulogies, no family speeches, just dirt. The casket was lowered into the ground with mechanical efficiency. Mom threw a single white rose onto the coffin, then turned her back before the pastor could even say amen. By that afternoon, our house came alive with celebration. The somber atmosphere evaporated like morning mist, replaced by music, expensive champagne, and barely concealed joy. Jake had changed into jeans and a polo shirt, feet propped up on Dad's favorite leather chair. First thing tomorrow, he announced, raising his glass, I'm officially taking over as CEO. Time to show everyone who's really in charge now. Sophia walked past, recording herself for social media. Rest in peace to my mentor and first love, she said into her phone, then immediately burst into giggles. That should get me at least 50,000 sympathy followers. And maybe a modeling contract, Isabella added. Death sells. Mom stood by Dad's portrait, the same one from his 50th birthday party, where he looked confident and invincible. She stared at his painted smile with pure hatred. Even in death, you still want to control everything, she whispered to the image. That evening, we gathered in Dad's study for the reading of his will. Dad's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, sat across from us in the mahogany-paneled study, opening a thick leather portfolio with the solemnity of a priest conducting last rites. The room smelled of Dad's cologne and old books, scents that would forever remind me of the man who'd built an empire from nothing. As instructed, Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, Richard Blackwell's final will and testament was sealed 8 months ago. No changes were made before his passing. Mom crossed her silk-stockinged legs and sipped champagne from crystal flutes she'd had brought in. Please get to the important parts, she said impatiently. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. To my beloved wife Victoria, I leave the family estates, all household accounts, jewelry collection, and the villa in Malibu. Mom's lips curved into a satisfied smile. Smart man, she thought. To my son Jake, I leave controlling shares in Blackwell Holdings, along with the corporate headquarters, company vehicles, and membership to the Highland Country Club. Jake pumped his fist quietly. Finally, he whispered. To my daughters Sophia and Isabella, I leave $5 million each in trust funds, plus access to the penthouse apartments in Manhattan and Los Angeles. Sophia literally applauded. Hello, New York. And to my youngest daughter Zoe, Mr. Harrison continued, I leave the original family ranch in Riverside, plus a sealed letter to be delivered privately. My heart skipped. Why would Dad single me out for a private message? Mr. Harrison handed me an envelope with my name written in Dad's distinctive handwriting. Finally, he said, there's a confidential letter addressed to the entire family, to be delivered tomorrow morning. Mr. Blackwell was very specific, it must be read together in private. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Fine, whatever. Just make sure our money transfers go through. By the next morning, money was flowing like water. Jake ordered a new Lamborghini. Sophia went live on Instagram wearing a $50,000 diamond necklace. Isabella posted a tribute titled, "If Heaven Had Wi-Fi, I'd text my daddy," that got 1 million likes. Mom wasted no time either. She called her secret lover Derek, the personal trainer she'd been seeing behind Dad's back for 2 years. "Baby," she purred into her phone, "the old man is finally gone. The cage door is wide open." Derek's laughter was cruel and sharp. "So I can move in now?" "Soon," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Very soon." But that night, everything changed. It started with a sound, a sharp bang echoing through the mansion's marble corridors. Our security guard, Roberto, checked the CCTV monitors with growing unease. Nothing moved on the cameras, but when he walked the hallway, he found a single family photo had fallen from the wall. Only Dad's face in the glass was cracked, spider-webbing across his smile like broken promises. As Roberto picked up the frame, the hallway lights flickered ominously. The air turned cold enough to see breath, and shadows seemed to move independently of their sources. He dropped the photo and ran back to his post, heart hammering against his ribs. In the kitchen, our cook Maria was preparing late-night tea when she looked up and screamed. A tall shadow stood in the doorway, the silhouette of a man, motionless and watching. She blinked hard, and it vanished like smoke. The pot clattered to the floor as she fled the house without looking back. The next morning, Sophia came downstairs in her silk pajamas, stopping at the mirror near the grand staircase to check her reflection. But something was wrong with the glass. It looked cloudy, distorted. Then she saw him. Dad's reflection stood behind her, clear as day, watching her with those piercing eyes. Her scream shattered the morning silence, echoing through every room of our mansion. Sophia's scream brought us all running. I found her collapsed on the marble floor, hyperventilating and pointing at the mirror with a shaking finger. "He was there," she gasped. "Dad was standing right behind me." Mom grabbed her shoulders roughly. "Stop being ridiculous. You're seeing things." But I noticed Mom's hands were trembling too. That evening, we gathered in the living room to read Dad's letter. Mr. Harrison had delivered it personally, his face grave and uncomfortable. The envelope was thick, cream-colored paper with Dad's personal seal pressed into red wax. Mom tore it open with her manicured nails. Dad's familiar handwriting filled the page in neat, precise lines. "If you are reading this," she read aloud, "it means I am gone. But remember, truth always finds its way home. You can take the house, the money, and the power, but peace does not live with betrayal." The words hung in the air like a curse. Mom's voice faltered, and she quickly folded the letter. "That's all," she lied, but I could see there was more text below. Jake was in Dad's office later that night when the lights suddenly cut out. He shouted for the backup generator, but then his laptop screen flickered back to life on its own. A video began playing automatically, security footage from the night Dad died. The timestamp showed our dining room from a hidden camera angle. Jake watched himself slip something into the wine bottle while everyone was distracted. His own face on screen looked calculating, cold. When the video ended, a single line of text appeared, "I saw everything." Jake slammed the laptop shut and hurled it across the room, the screen exploding in a shower of sparks and broken glass. His chest heaved as sweat poured down his face. Someone had that footage. Someone knew. The storm hit that night with unprecedented fury. Thunder rolled across the Texas sky like bowling balls in heaven. Lightning split the darkness, illuminating our mansion in stark, terrifying flashes. Rain hammered against the windows with the force of bullets. In the servants' quarters, Carlos heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside his room. He opened the door cautiously and nearly collapsed. A tall figure walked past, soaking wet from the storm. It was Dad, wearing the same navy suit from his burial, but very much alive. "Mr. Blackwell?" Carlos whispered, but the figure didn't turn. Just kept walking toward the main house with purpose. Carlos dropped to his knees, crossing himself repeatedly. Inside the mansion, Mom sat alone in the living room, nursing her third glass of wine. She'd told Derek not to come that night. Something felt wrong, dangerous. The house creaked and groaned around her like a living thing in pain. Then she heard it. The front door opening with its distinctive squeak that Dad had always meant to fix but never did. Her wine glass slipped from numb fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. A shadow moved across the room, and slowly, she turned her head. Dad stood there, alive, soaking wet from the storm, his hair plastered to his skull, his clothes muddy and torn. But his eyes burned with cold fire. "Hello, Victoria," he said quietly. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. No sound emerged. He stepped closer, water dripping from his clothes onto her Persian rug. "You're looking well for a grieving widow." "You're dead," she finally whispered. "We buried you. I watched them lower your coffin into the ground." Dad smiled, the same calm, knowing smile that had always unnerved his business rivals. "I got better." Mom's scream pierced the night like a siren, echoing through every room of the mansion and announcing to the world that Richard Blackwell had returned from the grave. And he was not happy. Mom's screams brought the whole family running to the living room. We found her backed against the wall, pointing at the empty space where Dad had been standing. He was gone, but wet footprints led from the door to the staircase like breadcrumbs of the impossible. "He was here." Mom gasped, her perfectly styled hair now wild and disheveled. "Richard was standing right there, soaking wet, staring at me." Jake grabbed her by the shoulders. "Mom, you're losing it. Dad is dead. We buried him ourselves." "I know what I saw," she shrieked. But doubt crept into Jake's voice because he'd seen the video. Someone was watching us, someone who knew everything. We huddled together in Sophia and Isabella's room that night, too scared to sleep alone. Every creak of the house made us jump. Every shadow seemed to hide Dad's vengeful spirit. "Maybe he didn't die properly," Isabella whispered, clutching her designer pillow like a shield. "What are you talking about?" Sophia snapped. "The burial. We did it all wrong. No proper ceremony, no prayers, no family gathering. Maybe his soul can't rest." "Dead people don't come back," Jake said, but his voice shook. "Tell that to the wet footprints," I muttered. Mourning brought no relief. Mrs. Rodriguez and Maria refused to return to work. Carlos had quit without notice. Jake called a security company for fresh guards, while Mom locked herself in her bedroom with a bottle of vodka. But Dad wasn't finished with us yet. The next day, Jake was summoned to Blackwell Holdings for an emergency board meeting. He strutted into the conference room expecting to finalize his takeover, but found 7 grim-faced board members waiting. "Jake," said Mr. Peterson, the longest-serving member, "you're no longer CEO." Jake's confident smile evaporated. "What did you say?" Mr. Peterson slid a legal document across the mahogany table. "Your father was declared legally alive yesterday. As long as he lives, all power reverts to him." "That's impossible," Jake stammered. "He's dead. I watched him die." According to his lawyer and multiple witnesses, Richard Blackwell is very much alive. There's a clause in his will: if he's found alive within 30 days of death, everything reverses. Another board member added coldly, "You're out, Jake. Effective immediately." Jake's world crumbled in real time. By afternoon, his bank accounts were frozen. His credit cards were cancelled. His corporate access was revoked. The golden boy had become a pauper overnight. But the real shock came that evening. Jake's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ready to tell the truth? His hands shook as he typed back, "What do you want?" The response was immediate, "Confess. Or I'll do it for you." Attached was the security footage of him poisoning Dad's wine, crystal clear and undeniable. That night, Jake sat in front of his laptop camera, tears streaming down his face. He went live on Instagram to his 100,000 followers. "My name is Jake Blackwell," he began, his voice cracking. "You know me as the CEO of Blackwell Holdings. The rich kid who had everything." He swallowed hard. "But I need to tell you something. We killed my father." The comments exploded. Jake continued through his sobs. "We poisoned him on his birthday because we thought he was changing his will. We were greedy. We were monsters. I put the poison in his wine. My mother planned it. My sisters knew. We buried him like trash and celebrated his death." His voice broke completely. "But now he's back. He's alive, and he saw everything. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." He ended the stream and collapsed, but his confession had already gone viral. Within hours, the Blackwell family name was trending worldwide, and not for business success. Dad watched the video from his temporary hideout across town. He closed his laptop and smiled grimly. 1 down. 3 to go. Jake's confession broke the internet within minutes. Every news station, every blog, every social media platform carried the story. Billionaire's son admits to murdering father. The Blackwell name, once synonymous with success and power, now meant betrayal and murder. Sophia's world collapsed overnight. Brand deals evaporated. Modeling agencies dropped her. Her Instagram followers turned into an army of trolls calling her a killer. She locked herself in her room, but Dad wasn't done with her yet. A second video surfaced, security footage showing Sophia filming TikToks while Dad choked to death at the dinner table. In the clip, she laughed and whispered, "Bye-bye, old man," then winked at her phone camera. The backlash was swift and merciless. Death threats filled her messages. Paparazzi camped outside our mansion. Sophia broke down completely, sobbing as she recorded her own confession. "I was part of it," she admitted to her camera, makeup streaming down her face. "I knew what they were planning. I watched my father die and I laughed. I'm a monster, and I'm sorry." Isabella held out longer, but the pressure was unbearable. Everywhere she went, people recognized her as the billionaire's daughter who helped kill her father. Finally, she too confessed in a tearful video, begging for forgiveness she knew she didn't deserve. But Mom was different. Mom was the architect of it all, and she refused to break. She holed up in the mansion with her lawyer, planning her defense. She'd claim Dad was abusive, that they'd acted in self-defense. She'd paint herself as the victim of a controlling husband who'd driven his family to desperation. Then Dad came home. I was the only one there when he walked through the front door, like he'd never left. He looked different, calmer somehow, more at peace. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by simple clothes. The weight of running an empire no longer pressed down on his shoulders. "Hello, Zoe," he said softly. I burst into tears and ran to him. He held me as I sobbed against his chest, the same safe embrace I'd known my whole life. "I'm sorry I didn't stop them," I whispered. "I should have said something." "You were afraid," he said gently. "Fear makes us all prisoners sometimes." That evening, Dad sat Mom down for one final conversation. No lawyers, no cameras, just the two people who'd once promised to love each other forever. "I know you planned it all," he said simply. "I know about Derek. I know about the poison. I know you wanted me gone." Mom's facade finally cracked. "You were suffocating me, Richard. 25 years of living in your shadow, being Richard Blackwell's wife instead of Victoria. I wanted to breathe. So you chose murder over divorce? She broke down then, the sophisticated mask slipping away to reveal the broken woman underneath. I was scared. Scared of being nothing without your money. Scared of being alone. Dad placed a legal document on the table, a full confession, already typed up. Sign it, Victoria. End this with what dignity you have left. She stared at the paper for a long time, then picked up the pen. Her signature was shaky but decisive. What happens now? She asked. Now? Dad stood up. Now you face the consequences of your choices. The law will decide your punishment. 6 months later, our family was scattered. Jake served 5 years for conspiracy to commit murder. The twins got lighter sentences due to their age and cooperation. Mom received 15 years, though she'd likely serve less with good behavior. Dad sold Blackwell Holdings and donated most of his fortune to charity. He bought a small ranch in Montana, far from the spotlight and the memories. He asked me to come with him. Sometimes I visit the others in prison. Sophia and Isabella have found peace in therapy and education programs. Jake works in the prison library, teaching literacy to other inmates. Even Mom seems different, humbler, more human. Dad was right about truth finding its way home. It just took a resurrection to bring it to light. What did you think of this wild story? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more incredible tales of justice and redemption. Which family member do you think deserved the harshest punishment? Let me know where you're watching from.